Hi, and welcome to the High Functioning Hotspot with me, Dr. Chloe Carmichael. Today's episode is super special. Today I have David Allen, the author of Getting Things Done, the old classic, and he's gone on to write a multitude of other fantastic books that are about productivity and getting things done. But what they're also about, which I love, is the idea that the better we get at creating, whatever productivity or organization methods that we need in our lives, the more able we'll be to just relax and feel creative and let go. That for him, this, productivity, it's not about just getting on some kind of a hamster wheel where we just do more, 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 more. It's really about learning how to take good ideas or whatever's going on in our life and getting it out of our head and into a system so that we don't have to worry and track and think about it so much anymore. And that actually frees us to just relax. And so I absolutely loved every moment of my interview, and I hope that you do too.
It's good afternoon for me. Good morning for you.
Well, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining me, David.
Sure.
So I'm Dr. Chloe Carmichael. I know this is actually our first time meeting, and this is the High Functioning Hotspot. And thank you so much for agreeing to come and share with me today. It's really such a privilege. So with that said, I am a clinical psychologist, and I do have a book coming out through Macmillan called Nervous Energy, Harness the Power of Your Anxiety. And it's about my work with high functioning people. And so I found your books and your body of work to be so interesting because it does exactly what I'm interested in doing, which is helping high functioning people to just really embrace their energy. And I love the points that you make about how when we take those tools and structure ourselves, that's really how we actually get in touch with our, big, free, creative energy and actually find relaxation. So I think that's so fabulous. And I'm sure that you just get inundated with requests of people that want to talk to you. I'm nowhere near on that level myself, but, with my book and, some TV and stuff, I do personally get overwhelmed myself even sometimes with these types of requests. So my first question to you, David, as a high functioning person yourself who must be beyond inundated with these types of requests, how do you decide when to say yes and when to give a polite decline?
Well, I trust my gut, my intuition, my spirit, my liver, whatever it is I trust to make a good intuitive choice in the moment. But that's not willy-nilly and free form. To be able to trust my intuitive choices, I have to do some regular review and uplifted view of my world and renegotiate with myself, what's up, and get present again so that I'm able to make better, intuitive, quick choices. See, Chloe, you don't have time to think. You need to have already thought. If you've already done sufficient thinking, then you can trust your intuitive judgments on a moment-to-moment basis, because you don't have time to think on a moment-to-moment basis. You need to make a quick judgment call, as do the high-performing people. It's just that oftentimes they make those judgment calls out of hope, not out of trust. So you want to move from hope to trust in those judgment calls, but that's not free. You actually have to do what you need to do to make sure you're making more good, intuitive, trusted choices.
Right. So you're saying that you move from hope to trust by having a good system that you're doing already so that you're already very aware and centered throughout your day when those choices arise?
Correct. See, your brain is a crappy office. And if you're trying to manage your life and your brain, you will be driven by latest and loudest and then not move into the trust point. So, your brain didn't evolve to remember or remind or manage priorities or manage relationships between more than 4 things. That's new cognitive science data. I discovered that 35 years ago just on the street in terms of how we work the best and how I work the best with a clear head. But now they've proven that. So most people are still using their head as their office. They're trying to use their mind to remind, remember, prioritize, manage, whatever. And it's like playing pinball in a bad pinball machine.
Yeah. I mean, to that point as well, personally, I love having the right administrative support. I know my assistant, I think, coordinated this with your assistant. And that's one of the things I'm always trying to get high functioning people to do, exactly as you said, is to really unburden themselves from as much of the admin and office type stuff as they can.
I am my own assistant, by the way. I haven't had an assistant for 25 years.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how you do it. So how, I mean, since given what you just said, then where you have, we have this kind of limited bandwidth as to how much we can really keep track of, you're saying that you also manage your own calendar as well on top of everything else that you're doing?
I do. I don't trust anybody else, frankly. And I've got to make too many changes too fast that includes too many other variables that it would take me longer to try to get somebody to do it right than for me to do it. Now, I know that's one of those, gee, I can do it better myself. And I understand people who have larger organizations or enterprises or that need, the help of other people to be able to manage either scheduling or other stuff. That's quite understandable. I'm just telling you personally, I don't. And I love that.
Wow.
I love that freedom.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, have you actually ever tried having an assistant and you found that it just actually wasn't assisting you, or like it's just been something you've never tried?
There have been times when I had an assistant, but instead of having them manage things like my travel schedule, which I had to change quickly a lot, which was just too much trouble for them to try to manage all of that really well. Unless you've been with it, unless they've been with you for 5 years, they know exactly what you need and you do the same kind of trips, that do the same kind of stuff. I never had my life that stable. So given to be able to stay clear about that. So my assistants became more small project managers.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need you to handle this whole thing over there. Could you go handle that? Could you go research that? Could you do not, but not that nitty gritty, day-to-day stuff. That's actually easier for me. As a matter of fact, that's often a way that I relax my brain, is cleaning up my email and making travel arrangements. It's just because that, easy to do. I can complete it. I do my own finances. I manage my own books. I do all that because that's actually a way for me to relax, given all the other thinking that I'm doing, and when I'm not doing that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I was actually curious about that too. So when you say that you manage your own books, a lot of people I think listening to this show either have a book or they want to have a book as well. And obviously I do. So for my own selfish reasons even, what does that mean when you say that you're managing your own books? What does that
My
include?
financial books, my accounting books.
Oh, okay. So
I
you
do
don't mean
have,
like your,
yeah. Well, I manage that too. Well, yeah, no, Penguin manages my books. So, and my agent. So, that's all theirs.
yeah.
So
So one of
I
the
just
things,
manage writing.
right, that's the big one. And of course now you're at this level where you're this, multi New York Times best-selling, thought leader. And I'm sure Penguin manages your books very carefully. But I'm curious, when you were first starting out and you were, just having your first book on the market, what kinds of things did you personally do to make sure that that book was launched correctly and handled correctly?
I had no idea. I'd never done a book before. So I just trusted, I got good advice from some people in the industry to find a good agent if I wasn't well known. And I thought, if I thought I had my book, that I thought my book was not so niche focused, but it was quite universally focused, then, and if I didn't have a name, best thing to do was get an agent. So I did. I got a good one. She's still my agent.
Mm-hmm.
She was an ex-editor, from New York. So she knew the game, she knew the trade, and she knew a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people in the business already. So, she's been a great partner, from a business standpoint to make that happen. So I didn't really know how to write a book. I spent 25 years trying to figure out what I'd figured out, and then finally got some coaching that I should probably write the manual. And so, okay, let me see if I can write a book about it. It took 4 years from the time I pulled the trigger on it, Chloe, to the time it got actually on a shelf, because it took a long time to figure out, should I go directly to an editor or to whatever? Should I get an agent? And writing the business, the business plan. I needed to write a business plan for the book, because no publisher is going to publish a book just out of a whim. They need to say, will this make me money?
Right, right.
So
I mean,
how am I going to do this? So what's unique? What's your new unique message? Who are you going to target this to? Why is this not being done out there already? There's a lot of really good and hard questions that you need to answer. So that was one of the hardest things to do, was write a business plan for the book.
yeah, yeah. I mean, but once you get over that hurdle, it's it's such a thrill. I'm super excited, for that to be happening soon for me. And I know it's happened many times for you. And I'm glad you mentioned a business plan. I know that you mentioned a business plan really kind of about the book specifically. But another thing I wanted to ask you about is that you are obviously so much more than like just a successful author. Your books have mushroomed in a beautiful way into an entire industry. And I'm curious for you as David, the business person, did you kind of have certain things that maybe you tried as you were growing your business that didn't go quite the way that you planned? Or how did you find your way of connecting the dots from growing yourself from being an author into a tycoon of the business and the thought world? I'm so curious, honestly, from a personal level, as well as a psychologist that works with high functioning people. You're kind of at the king of the hill. But it's one thing to see someone at the top, but then I always like to hear about the journey. And it's so easy for high functioning people to look at someone like you and say, oh, wow, he's just got it all together. But did you just naturally know where and how to grow, or did you have bumps along the way?
Yes. All the above, Chloe. I mean, I didn't really, I've not been particularly aspirational or even entrepreneurial in terms of what I'm doing. I've been more of an educator and a researcher, and also wanting to keep a good job and loving to help people. And, so discovering best practice methodologies that did nothing but improve people's condition, and then finding ways to make that part of a business so I could do that was just a one foot in front of the other. I didn't really have any big either visions about this. I mean, I started my own after, come on, I had so many jobs before I was 35. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just helping a lot of other people with their businesses. And then I discovered they pay people to do that. They call them consultants. So I said, okay, start my own consulting practice. And I said, I guess I'll just hire myself out on a project by project basis. 1981, right? And so I started doing that. But I had a reference point about being clear and balanced. And I'm a freedom kind of guy. I don't like being distracted by stuff. I like being present. I had a martial arts training and meditation stuff and spiritual explorations and so forth. So that sort of, coached me into myself in terms of how do I stay clear as my life got more professional, more complex, more busy. And so I discovered techniques for myself, turned around and used them with my clients. And it turned out that those techniques produced the same results they did for me: more focus, more balance, more structure, more sense of control, more sense of, most importantly, space to think about the most important things in a most strategic way and creative way. And so I started doing that with them. It worked. Everything I discovered for me worked for them. I went, wow, I guess I uncovered something really cool. And then somebody in the big corporate world saw what I was doing and they said, gee, David, we need those kind of results in our whole culture. Can you design some sort of a training or format around this so we can reach a lot of people instead of you just doing one-on-one with folks? And so I did, and it was quite successful. We created a pilot program for 1,000 executives and managers at Lockheed in 1983, 84. And it worked so well, I suddenly found myself thrust into the corporate training world. Could have fooled me. That was not a plan. That was not a plan, believe me.
No, but so to me, that's an interesting moment because that's a breakthrough moment in your career, right? I mean, I know that for you at this point in your career now, it's probably, not a big thing to say like, oh yeah, it was 1,000 executives that, were doing my program. But at that point in time, that was the first time. So do you recall even exactly how that came about, that somebody said, hey, we want to take what you're doing and have 1,000 executives trained in that? I mean, did you say to yourself, oh my gosh, how much do I even charge for this? Like, how do I put this together? Like, tell me that story.
All of that, of course. It was like constant, oh my God, and, the first day I had a partner that I was working with at the time, and and so I did deliver my first program, and, the head of human resources who had brought me in to do this called me in and said, we need to talk. Oh my God, what do we need to talk about? Oh my God, screwed up and, we're dead or whatever. And, I walked into his office and he had a pile of, of memos like this. This is pre-digital time. Had a pile of memos. He said, these are all requests for people that were in your first program that they want all of their staff to go through your program again. He said, I don't know how to deal with all that. That's when we decided to do, okay, let's do a big rollout, with this and so forth. So it was quite, I had no idea. I had no idea how much I had no idea even how much uptake there would be on getting things done when I wrote it, and in 2000, because I was just trying to capture the stuff that I uncovered. But see, Chloe, I've never had any formal traditional education in business psychology or time management. All of this stuff just came out of experience and my own use of it, and my own use of it with other people to watch the results of it. So I was really I guess that's why it took me 25 years to figure out that what I'd figured out was unique, that nobody else had done it. I thought I was the last guy in the world to figure this out. There were a whole lot of people making a lot more money than me that I thought they'd already figured this out. Wrong. As a matter of fact, the more senior people were and the more sophisticated they were and the busier they were, the more they absolutely needed this and were hungry for it. So that was kind of a big surprise. So then I wound up, and for the most part, I mean, this was just, I had a couple of partners by that time, and it was mostly just a lifestyle business. There's just kind of, wow, it's a good job and people still want us, and let me do that and figure out how to sell it, how to price it, and what to do about it. And it was a constant rethinking. There was no big magic formula or magic strategy that we had other than follow our nose and just pick up the phone. We never did any marketing. It was all referral based stuff. So then it was just a lot of discovery. What happened when we did that in the Social Security Administration? What happened when we did that at Lockheed? What happened when we did that at SmithKline? What happened? Suddenly, I'm thrust into this world of, a whole lot more. I was never been in the corporate world myself, as an employee or, in that way. So that was all kind of new to me, called what those worlds were like and how people operated in those worlds. But they were the hungriest for this. As a matter of fact, when the first edition of Getting Things Done published, that got on the shelves in 2001, working with the editor and Penguin and so forth, how do you promote this? And so even titling it and positioning it, it was positioned for the fast track professional, because they were the people first being hit with the tsunami of email and, speed of change and speed and volume and velocity of stuff that was coming at them, in the digital world particularly. And so we figured, well, that was the ripest audience for what I had to say. And that had been true pretty much for, 20 years of my career. And so that's how the book was positioned. I wrote a new edition for it in 2015. The methodology didn't change, the audience did. I even knew when I first wrote this work, because I'd done this work for kids and for students and for stay-at-home dads and for clergy and for physicians and for anybody around there. Anybody's got a busy life can use this methodology I came up with and give a more sense of clarity and freedom and focus. And so I knew it was then, but we positioned the book for that group and that audience and that target market because they were the ones who were the hungriest for it and had the money to pay for training and coaching about it.
Yes. My business grew in a somewhat similar way. So when I was starting my private practice and I didn't even know if I'd be able to, pay my rent, I thought about the audience I would serve, that I knew I had to be targeting clients that at least could afford to have, private pay therapy sessions. But now as I'm so excited to have the chance to share my book with the world. And by the way, similar to you also, I share in the book about how I use a lot of the techniques on myself as I was building my business to just, manage my own anxiety. But now the point of the book is to take it out of just that one-to-one space with people who can pay lots of money for one-to-one and bring the message that there are high functioning people everywhere, right? And that it's so wonderful to be able to share those techniques with people, as you've said. It may be a stay-at-home dad. He doesn't have to be the CEO of a big company. A stay-at-home dad could absolutely be a super high functioning person. I wanted to circle back as well to something else that you mentioned, that you have had a very interesting career path, like so many interesting jobs. And for me, as well as a former yoga teacher, I really respect and relate to a lot of those jobs. I know you even were a minister at one point as well. And one of the things with resilience in psychology is that we've found that religiosity is a protective factor to the point where it doesn't even matter what the religion is or even if it's meditation, but that it helps people, as you said, to be centered and to be resilient. So I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing anything about your current spiritual or meditative life and how you do that, how you get that centered feeling.
Well, if you've done this for 50 years, as I have, it starts to become just sort of second nature, that you just relax, take a breath, let go, let God. That's my screen share. So truly, it's a matter of letting go. We get too invested in our thoughts, our emotions, and our physical materiality. And so anything you can do to kind of relax from that doesn't mean you have to give those up. It just means you don't let them run you.
That is so true. And I really think for high functioning people, that is the name of the game, because we tend to have such high drive. We're so engaged. The mind never stops and it's going a million miles an hour. And so sometimes, as you said, just, learning how to let go. And I have to admit, I'm sort of secretly relieved to hear you say that you don't have some big fancy protocol, because I actually don't either. I feel like it almost comes intuitively to me sometimes, and to the point where I almost wonder if I'm cheating. So I'm glad to know that you actually have the same experience.
Well, it does help. I sometimes will spend 30 minutes to 60 minutes and step back and go inside to my reference points for my spiritual stuff. And, I personally have coaches on the other side. And so being able to stop and listen to them and listen to you can call it your inner voice, your intuition, or whatever. I just know there's a team on my side on many different levels. So that's my working hypothesis. And I have real experiences of that. And so given that's true, all I have to do is relax and listen and stop. And then, I've never gotten any bad advice.
Yeah. So when you say that you have coaches on the other side, do you mean like that you have coaches where you're a client, or do you mean something different?
No, in spirit.
Huh. And so they're like, are they like a particular known kind of entity to you, and you have,
Mm-hmm.
say, a few of them?
Yeah, some of them are.
Would you please share, David? I would love to know more.
Mm. Well, if you want to know, I'm still I'm still an ordained minister in the Movement of Spiritual Inner Awareness, MSIA. So msia.org.
Mm-hmm.
You'd see all of what that's about.
Okay, well, thank you. I would love to know more, and I love that you shared that. So I also wanted to ask you, because you mentioned that a lot of the stuff for you is actually rather intuitive, and that you didn't even need to take any training for it. And so obviously this is an area of passion for you. And I'm always curious, where passion comes from. So when you were, say, 12, were you like just intuitively good at time management and very driven? Or did this passion arise maybe out of like a need to learn how to focus all that energy of yours?
Well, I'm going to give you a counterintuitive answer. I think passion is highly overrated. I'm just the laziest guy you ever met. So my passion was to not have to work any harder than I needed to, and to be free to focus on what I wanted to focus on without any distraction. You can call that a passion if you want. I just say that's just a standard that I held, And so if I was ever off that, I said, how do I get back to that? So I passion is overrated. Overrated. It's kind of like, as excited as you get emotionally, that's how depressed you're going to get. So, step by step, small little things. I like the word, I like the word satisfaction, because you can have a wonderful day where you never smiled or laughed at all, but you are totally satisfied at the end of your day. And I think that's much more sustainable than happy. So even happiness is overrated. A great book of mine I read a couple of years ago, which I highly recommend, is called The Antidote by Oliver Burkeman. And he goes into a lot of kind of sort of the hippy dippy, let's be happy about everything, be totally optimistic, and how absolutely unfunctional that is. And so a lot of his stuff, he actually explores a lot of what the Stoics were about, which most people don't understand. It was a lot about acceptance of reality. If you don't accept that you're stressed or that you're in anxiety, what you resist, you're stuck with. You got to say, I am totally stressed and anxious right now. Now what?
That
Right.
is so true. That is so true. Sometimes
Well, coming
people
as a
will come.
psychologist, you must know that. People have to accept what's true before they can move past it.
Well, it's so true. I mean, sometimes people will come to me and they'll say, well, how do I get rid of my anxiety? And I always try to explain to them that a person without anxiety would be dead. The healthy function of anxiety is to stimulate preparatory behaviors. So the idea is that we want to take that awareness that something's making us uncomfortable, and we don't necessarily even want to get rid of it. It can actually give us a healthy tickle to kind of make us rise to the challenge of whatever it is that we need to engage with.
Well, that's why you got breast. That's why you got, that's why you had breakfast. That's why you got dressed. That's why you got out. That's how you got out of the room. I just call it cognitive dissonance. It's not anxiety. Anxiety has a negative spin on it. I call it anxiousness. Well, okay, it depends on how you just define the term. But it's like there's a dissonance. There's a delta between me being where I am and being out of the room. Okay. As long as I'm appropriately engaged with getting out of the room, there's no anxiety. I'm appropriately engaged. If I go, I want to be out of the room. Yeah, but I want to sit here, but I want to be out of the room. Now you're in anxiety because you've now created inner conflict that's unresolved and you're not appropriately engaged with. So as long as you're appropriately engaged with those things, see, as soon as you create any kind of vision or goal that's not true yet, you've created that kind of dissonance. You've created a delta between where you are and where you're going to be or where you want to be. And that's what creates movement, as long as you're moving and appropriately engaged with it.
That is so true. That is exactly the message of my book. It's nervous energy, harness the power of your anxiety. So that is exactly the message I'm trying to share with people.
Yeah, good work.
No, it's but with you and your career, I have to ask as well, because as you said, you even mentioned breakfast a few minutes ago, and it was actually one of my questions. Even I was thinking, like, do these ideas just come to David like over breakfast? And so I was also curious, since some of this is so intuitive for you, do you have like all of the next stages of your career and your business planned and mapped out, or does it come to you kind of in a more intuitive type of a manner?
Yes. Both of those. I mean, it's wonderful to have goals, because goals and vision, by the way, the goals and vision, the value of them is not the future that they define. It's how those visions affect your current behaviors and perceptions. So
Can you
I
say
don't
that
think I've
again,
ever.
please? That was really rich. I just want to hear that again. Can you say that
Well,
again,
if
please?
you had a 5-year vision right now, Chloe, where you want to be 5 years from now, how you'd like to be seen and perceived, what you'd like to feel, where you'd like to be, what your career and lifestyle and all of that. If you had that clear vision, that's only as good as you can see given where you are right now and your maturity and your experience. Move 2 years down toward that vision will change. So don't beat yourself up that vision changed, that you didn't stick to that. You use that vision to get you going, but 2 years down, you're now more mature, more sophisticated. You're going to see another vision. So your visions are going to mature as you do, but you don't beat yourself up because you didn't get them. You
Right.
use them to engage appropriately with the directionality. See, we're teleological. You can't stop wanting to be somewhere, do something, whatever. You couldn't stop if you tried, as long as you're conscious. You're always trying to do something. Even if you're trying to do nothing, that's still a trying to do, right? So you're still, you can't stop that. So what you want to do is direct that. Am I directing that appropriately? And it doesn't have to be fun. See, I'm not a motivational speaker. I sleep as long as I can. I'm being as lazy as I can. I just want to have a clear head. So I just do whatever I need to do to get clear again. So I'm present with whatever I'm doing. So I enjoy the glass of wine. I enjoy cooking spaghetti. I enjoy walking the dog with my wife. So I'm just present with whatever's there, and present to take advantage of good ideas that show up at random ad hoc moments that I capture whenever they happen. That's why a lot of what I teach is capture whatever pops in. Don't lose good ideas. I taught, hey, Because as soon as you have a good idea you think you might want to do, but you haven't captured and clarified and organized it appropriately, it's going to keep spinning in your mind and wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's no fun.
100%. Truer words were never spoken. So David, I promised you I wouldn't keep you too long, and I know that we are coming up on the half hour. So I want to thank you for sharing so much that you have, and just give you the floor if there's anything that I haven't asked you, or if there's anything that you want people to know, any, website, anything that you want people to know, please share.
Well, thanks, Chloe. First of all, a key idea everybody should have is your brain for having ideas, not for holding them. That's now cognitively proved data.
So well said.
So externalize all of your thinking, good, bad, indifferent, personal, professional, doesn't matter. Write it down, get it out of your head to clear that space so that you can make then good intuitive decisions about what to do about all of that, and to be able to see the bigger game from a larger perspective. You can't beat that. So that's my sort of core admonition to everybody. If you only had one thing I had to say about that. And just personally, the mission of me and my partners in our work is to create a world where there are no problems, only projects.
I love that. Your brain is for having ideas, not for holding them. I really love that. So David, we'll wrap it up here then in terms of the podcast. And I want to thank you so much again for appearing. Wow, what an amazing interview. It was truly such a privilege to be able to talk with David. I think that the thing that he said that really stuck with me the most is that your brain is not for holding ideas, your brain is for having ideas. And that's what his system is really about, is about taking all the great ideas and creativity that is in your brain and learning how to just get it out there and get it organized so that you can really free your bandwidth to keep having and cultivating and growing your ideas, rather than trying to keep everything, managed and all those balls in the air happening in your mind. And so that was one of my takeaways, but there were so many, because really he's such a treasure trove. So thank you so much for joining me for that. And I'm looking forward to the next time. I hope if you want to connect with me before the next time, you can certainly just queue up another episode, or you can find me on social media. I'm on YouTube. All of my video, I have video logs. So I take all my blogs and I read them and share them on video. Of course, I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, everywhere else online. So thanks again for connecting with me today. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you again more.